Here we go. So welcome everyone to the Tourism Roundtable. Thanks for joining us today. I was saying earlier and recognize a few of you from the membership breakfast this morning too. So it's a very busy Chamber of Commerce day, and it's a Chamber of Commerce day outside too. We're actually having a fall this year, so that's great. So what we're going to do with the Tourism Roundtable today is we're going to hear from Tarek Salahi from Hotels at Sea, who is our annual sponsor. Then we're going to hear from Sergio Piedra and maybe Gustav. I'm not sure about what's happening with respect to legislation coming up in Tallahassee that affects tourism. We need to hear about that. And then we're going to hand it over to Don. And Don, you're going to have to pronounce your last name for them when you get online. I can never pronounce it. He's been hired by the city to handle our tourism master plan. So some of you may have seen the overview of the master plan. So it's a little bit of a truncated version of it. And we're going to talk a bit more about the SWOT analysis, because that's something that we want everyone's participation in so we can get the best idea of where to go with our tourism master plan. So as of now, I'm going to hand it over to Tarek, and you could tell us a little bit what's happening in the cruise industry. Give us an update.
Very good. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's doing great. We're excited to say we are back, and that is our new hashtag for the cruise industry. And you'll see it all over my Facebook page. And proudly, we just brought over the brand new Celebrity Apex. And we had no COVID cases with the crew, no COVID cases with the passengers. And we've been sailing with no COVID cases now consistently with the Royal Caribbean Group and Celebrity Cruises. And we're proud to say that all operations are moving ahead, and we have not all, but the majority of the fleet is coming online now. So the industry is back, and that's going to be great for all of us because that brings more tourism to our community here in Delray Beach. And as your sponsor here at the tourism community with Hotels at Sea, one of the fun things, we're going to be curating our pre and post packages with the cruise line industry. Specifically, we're going to focus on the Royal Caribbean Group with Celebrity and Royal and Silver Sea for pre and post stays here in Delray Beach, surrounding a new activity, tourism activity we are working on around the sport of polo, which is a big thing for the cruise line industry, for the upscale market that brings in good money and good revenue. And this will support all the businesses in the Delray Beach community. People will be able to participate in after pre polo events to bring businesses money to their bars, restaurants. So a lot of exciting things, more to come about that later. Stephanie can tell you more about that, or I can at a later date, but we're working really hard on that. It's all part of the relaunch of the cruise industry and building these pre and post stays here, and excited to be doing it. So if you ever want to cruise, talk to either Jeff Dash or myself. We love to help you out.
Thank you, Tarek. I know you've been on some cruises recently as well. Everyone wants to live vicariously through you. Actually, we just want your life. So,
well, yeah. It looks fun and glamorous. Trust me, we're working our butts off on these ships, making sure everybody's happy and doing great. And this weekend, in fact, we're going to be doing the inauguration and the naming ceremony of Odyssey of the Seas, which is Royal Caribbean's newest ship, again here in Fort Lauderdale. So, everything's happening at once now with all the new ships coming online, and they've been built for the last 2 years, but we're finally excited to get passengers back on them and bring more money here to Palm Beach County and Delray Beach specifically. So
good. We've been wanting
teamwork.
to do pre and post cruise packages. In fact, the Tourism Task Force has been talking about that. So we'll work with you guys a little bit more on that. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me as a sponsor.
Thank you. So Sergio, do you want to talk to us a little bit about some of the legislation that's coming up that's going to affect the tourism industry?
Yes. Good afternoon. Thank you, Stephanie, for indulging me for a couple minutes here. I only have like 2 PowerPoint slides to share with you, and I'm going to do that, which will make this a little bit easier to understand.
Okay.
All right. Can everybody see the screen there?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So once again, Sergio Piedra from Discover the Palm Beaches, Director of Community Engagement and Advocacy. And one of the hats I wear around here is to keep tabs on what the state is doing and where it affects our industry. And one of the most important things is how we get our funding as an organization to promote tourism, which is through bed tax. And some people call them tourist development taxes, but it's a 6% tax on each hotel room, B&B throughout the county. And that goes to fund ourselves at Discover, but multiple agencies as well. And most importantly, marketing and promotion of all of our cities and towns and county. So this is where things have gotten very interesting. We've seen yearly tax, if you will, on bed tax funding that gives the state and also the county the right to use those funds in different ways other than tourism marketing. And so a new bill has has surfaced last week. It's called House Bill 6075. And Representative Scambia, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, I'm sorry. I don't know her personally, but she's from the Orlando area. So it's kind of a surprise that she would file a bill related to bed taxes, comparing how important tourism is to Orlando area. But what makes this bill very different from some of the other bills we've seen on bed taxes is that it would remove the requirement in the state statutes that 40% of funding go toward marketing and promotion, and basically sends that group of funds out there for use elsewhere than in the tourism marketing area. So it could be used for a little bit of everything. Last year, there was a bill to try to use bed tax for flood mitigation projects, which is admirable, but not quite what bed taxes are supposed to be used for. And here it could be just about anything. She kind of left it open-ended. So we don't know what exactly is the end game. But nevertheless, for us, the end game is to prevent this from happening. Our momentum has been super strong. It's been a terrific summer, terrific spring, and we anticipate going into the season, our traditional season, with strong momentum. And the last thing we need to do is, all of a sudden have the state pull the rug out from underneath us and say that we can't there isn't the requirement of 40% go to marketing and promotion. So this is very important of a bill. Now, here's the thing to keep in mind. There could be similar bills out there other than this one. This particular representative, for lack of a better term, has been known to be a little bit of a loose cannon out there. She has some people who love her and some people who can't stand her, but we don't know quite sure how this bill is going to react. Last year, there was the bill that was previously in the House that gave bed tax to flood mitigation, passed the House with bipartisan support and then died in the Senate due to a lot of intensive lobbying from our industry. So we may do that again. So the way we look at it here at Discover is that we're all advocates for tourism. Every person on this call, everybody listening out there via Facebook, and everybody else related to the chamber are advocates for the strongest, one of the strongest, second strongest industry in our county. So we may need your support as we get closer to the legislative session in January and see where this bill goes. So we may call on you to help us as a group and make sure that we can keep our momentum going. Now that, Delray Beach, the chamber and the city and some of that are really, seeing the true value of what we bring to the table in the tourism field. So again, this is me. You can email me or call me if you need more information about this. I'm happy to go over this with you. And I'll stop sharing there. And that's really it. Stay tuned for further developments on this or any other developments. So you may hear from me again. But I appreciate it, Stephanie, for the few moments here to kind of let everybody know that our industry, unfortunately, is under attack once again.
Is there anything that we can do or the audience can do? I know we've written a lot of letters in the past.
Yes, sorry, the lights went out in my office. Sorry. Okay. Yes, I would say there is the Palm Beach County Delegation, which is made up of our representatives and senators here in the county that cover all various parts of it. a letter of support from your chamber or what have you, or if folks want to, we can always get you in touch with them, or we can discuss those things. And I think something like that is a good first step, because they do listen to the folks back home, especially a place like Delray that is absolutely, one of our mainstays in the tourism industry with Atlantic Avenue and the hotels and the beach and Murakami and so forth. So your voices do matter, and they will listen to what you have to say.
Well, that works out well because on November 23rd, that's a Tuesday before Thanksgiving, that's our legislative lunch. So we'll be able to bend the ear of Senator Berman and Representative Caruso. I think Representative Willite have all confirmed. So we'll make sure to probably address it during the Q&A so everybody is aware of it at the legislative lunch. So we'll do that and make sure to write to them as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we appreciate your support as always.
Thank you. So yeah, here we go again. We've been through this before, tourism people.
Yes.
Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Don. Don, I can't pronounce your last name. How do you pronounce your last name?
Don, D-O-N.
Just Don K. All right, Don Cornelius. No, Don K. So Don has been handling the tourism master plan. He's been contracted by the city to undertake a tourism master plan. It's an exhaustive process, and he's already started doing an amazing job. He's made this presentation to the tourism task force. So when I looked at the guest list for today, it's about half and half. Half of you has probably seen it before, but half of you haven't. So he's doing a slightly smaller version of it. And we're going to concentrate a bit on the SWOT analysis because that's where we need everyone's help. So we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, what we're looking to find and how you can get in touch with them, because we would really like for anyone on this call or anyone that's listening to also participate. And there are prizes. So anyway, I'll hand it over to you, Don.
Great, thank you. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So as Stephanie mentioned, we had our kickoff meeting for the task force, which is comprised of, I think, 66 people that are key stakeholders within Palm Beach County and the destination. So this is a subset. I've eliminated some slides because of time constraints. So after this presentation, Stephanie has the deck. She'll send it to you. And if you have any questions, if you could just hold them till the end. So the agenda is we're gonna, I was gonna ask Stephanie to say a few words, but I think she did a great setup. And then we're gonna go through a tourism overview. We're going to look at the methodology that we use to come up with the tourism master plan. We've developed a knowledge support system, and then next steps. And then if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to field them at the end of the presentation. So this is really a triad. It's a partnership between the city, the DDA, and the chamber. So we have a weekly steering committee meeting comprised of the triumphant, and we go through a project management system detailing all the different action items and where we are in the process. So just to bring everybody up to speed from a tourism overview perspective, a lot of this data is from 2019 because 2020, as you all know, pandemic hit. So I wanted to show where we were versus, the most recent data. So this slide is really important because it kind of illustrates why tourism master plans are important at a city level. So you've got an organization called Brand USA based out of DC. They're focused on 194 different countries driving tourism into the US. That's followed up by another company out of DC called USTA, United States Travel, and they're focused on 19,000 cities throughout the United States and 50 states, driving 2.3 billion visitors. Then you have in Tallahassee, Visit Florida, and in 2019 they drove 131 million visitors to 282 cities. Then you've got the Tourism Development Council out of West Palm Beach, who's responsible really for driving tourism into a county. So they, in 2019, had 8.2 million visitors for 39 cities. And that's basically from a support standpoint, all of the different organizations that are focused on driving tourism. But you can see that, the cities have to kind of fend for themselves. So I've kind of created a consulting service to focus on these different cities. And Delray Beach, we're estimating and plus or minus, 10%, around 713,000 visitors for the destination. And that number will be used in a business case that I've developed for the destination. So, what's the strategic rationale on why we're doing this? Well, the city has a comprehensive plan which calls out tourism. So everything that we do, we want to link back to that comprehensive plan. It's similar to, it's not a strat plan, it's a comprehensive plan that the city uses to, allocate resources throughout the organization. It really creates a roadmap for the future. And more importantly, I think it aligns the stakeholders. On the call on Friday, the question was asked, well, has this ever been done before? And Laura Simon from the DDA said, no, it hasn't. So I use the analogy of kind of being in a submarine. We're all going in the same direction, but we're not talking to one another as efficiently as we could. So the vision is to really have like an aircraft carrier where we're running sorties, we're all color coded, we know what our roles and responsibilities are. So I think there's going to be a lot of value by kind of putting tourism, if you will, on pause and just getting everybody to start to row together. Creates jobs for every 100 tourists. It creates one job, quality of life. There's a rippling effect. So, you might not be able to get in your restaurants in February and March, but the rest of the year, you really have the benefit of all the different tourism assets within the destination. Generates incremental taxes and, it creates a competitive advantage. Now this is my fourth engagement since I left to Discover the Palm Beaches. So Delray Beach is ahead of the curve, and they've always been noted as a best demonstrated practice within Palm Beach County. It also enhances community development from a business expansion standpoint, a retention standpoint, and then acquisition of new businesses, restaurants, hotels, etc. And then it accelerates the recovery to the pandemic. You look in the rearview mirror, 2008, 2009, the last time we went through recession, tourism came out of that very strong, and you can see, as witnessed by what's going on within the county, it's very resilient. And then it drives economic value. So for every tourist, either direct or indirect, it's around $900. And so I took those inputs and I built a business case that basically says, the Delray Beach has around 14, close to 1,500 hotel rooms now that you've got the Ray open, the Courtyard recently opened, as well as the Loft. You've got a Hampton Inn that's being built. So they've got around 8.7% of all the hotel rooms within the county. So if you use that assumption that they have 8.7% of the hotel rooms, they should probably get around 713,000 of the 8.2 million visitors. And again, this is not H&R Block. This is, directionally, strategically, what we're using to kind of really assess, well, what is the value for tourism? As I mentioned, 900 direct and indirect. The definition of that is if it's direct, it could be, as an example, concierge at a hotel. Indirect would be the landscaping company that's cutting the grass at that company. So if you just cut that in half, it's around $450 per visitor that we're calculating. So if you look at the economic impact on a direct and indirect, 641 million, cut that in half, it's 320 million. So the city daily, and these are averages, are 1.7 million to $800,000 in economic value. And I think it's important that we have that as a placeholder. So as the city is allocating resources, we've got a stake in the ground that says, does that strategy trump what we're doing in terms of economic value? The power tourism, 12% of Palm Beach County's GDP of 7.4 billion is tied to tourism. It's the second largest driver of the economy. Around 70,000 people within the 1.4 million residents are tied directly to or indirectly to tourism, so around 5%. Sales tax, 100 million, which I mentioned. And then, 4 in 10 restaurants are dependent upon tourists because a lot of people say, well, I can't get in my restaurant. Well, if you didn't have tourism, that restaurant might not be there. And then you've got retailers are also very dependent. People like to shop when they're on holiday. So 1 in 10 retailers rely on tourism. So what are the demand generators? Number 1 is the beach, 2, visiting relatives, shopping, food and beverage, visiting friends, and then sightseeing. So if you look at the county visitation, over the last 11 years, they had a 100% increase. And, that was that 45-degree angle. We were just buzzing along like there was no tomorrow. And then all of a sudden the pandemic hit. And so you took a look at that business case and you can do the math, take 37% off those numbers. And that's what's happened in 2020 because of the pandemic. Visitor origination, you've got 55% of all visitation coming from outside the state of Florida, followed by a third coming from within the state. I think that number is going to jump significantly because people aren't, getting on airplanes. They prefer to drive because of the pandemic. So I think that number will be closer to 40%. And then you've got 13% international, 50% of those are coming from Canada. So what are the key feeder markets? If you look at this chart, when it says New York, that's really the region. That's Connecticut, and that's New Jersey, that's New York. And you can see the bars that are color coded. You got 6 of the top 15 feeder markets into the destination that are really supporting that drive market. So airport passengers, and this is more strategic. If you look at the 188 million passengers that arrive or depart from any of the Florida airports, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, PBI represent almost 1 out of every 2 passengers. So there's no other region within the state of Florida that can boast that type of distribution, if you will, of visitors. Talking a little bit about the cruise industry, there's 33 million cruisers on a global basis. 11 million, or a third of all those cruisers, are coming through Fort Lauderdale and Miami. So to the previous conversation, doing pre and post packages with these cruise lines, I think again can be incremental in terms of adding additional visitation. Reason for visit: visiting friends, casinos, golf trips, touring, staying at a resort. And then if you look at, destinations within the county where people actually went and visited and stayed overnight, you look at Delray, it's around half. So 21% of the people, along with other cities they may have visited, went to Delray Beach, but only 11%, actually stayed. And if you look at what I refer to as a worst demonstrated practice is West Palm Beach, where half the people that visit actually go to that destination, but only 20% stay. And they've added a lot of inventory. Jeff Green has another 200 rooms coming on board. You've got the Bend that just recently opened. So again, this data is basically saying, is there opportunity for existing inventory? And I think what the destination has done with the loft and the courtyard and the Ray is right on target because they want to get that 11% higher. Our hotel inventory hasn't been where it's been for the last generation. We were at 18,000 rooms and we're just surpassing that now. So we were digging out of a area where a lot of developers flipped their hotels into condos. So room inventory. If you look at all the rooms, West Palm Beach leads with over 4,500. Delray Beach is ranked number 4 and has around 8% of all hotel rooms in the county. And if you kind of peel the onion one level further, here are the rooms by hotel. And you can see that the largest is the Opal, which has recently been refurbished. You've got the new product that's also there. So again, it's around 1,481 total rooms. Peel the onion one more level and say, well, what types of rooms do you have? you can see that, over 3/4 are either upscale or upper scale. So it's not like other destinations within the city that have, only 30 rooms and they got 10 hotels. This is more of an upscale destination, and their hotel segment kind of mirror images that statement. Hotel occupancy, 2 peak months, February, March, the lowest being September. Nirvana, in my mind, would be that we would flatline that those peak months of February, March, and it's building campaigns and strategies to fill in those shoulder months, so you increase that occupancy at a hotel to 80% year round. Travel trends, I'm affiliated with Next Factor, MMGY, who's a global tourism master planning company. They recently published their top 25 trends, and I pulled down the top 5. And what we're doing with this destination is in alignment with the #1 trend. And that's getting the TDC involved, the agencies involved, anybody who has anything to do with tourism, and partnering with them. Visitors are now looking for unique experiences. They don't want to go to the seafood bar at the Breakers. They prefer to go to a food truck because it's a different experience. Content is going to be king, and we need to look through, what are our distribution channels for getting that content out there. Video is the new currency. Print, I'm not saying is dying, but video is everything. TikTok is an example. These 30-second snippets of information. And then travelers are saying, hey, I want more personalized information. I want control. I want interaction. So I think that there's opportunities to create your top 10 list in the destination of things to do in Delray Beach. So you could have itineraries for a family staying a week. You could have itineraries for a romantic weekend with your loved one. So there's all different opportunities. And again, by assembling the task force, we will prioritize all these recommendations strategically from high to low. The project methodology. We've created a 12-step process. It starts with assembling a task force and goes to installing a dashboard at the back end so we can measure the performance. So I'd like to just take a few seconds to go through each of the different steps and provide some amplification. So the task force, cross-functional team of tourism stakeholders, representing different business segments within the marketplace. It took us 2.5 months to put this team together before we actually had the kickoff meeting, because we wanted to make sure that each segment of the tourism industry had representation. As I mentioned, 66 different organizations raised their hand and said, I'm in. And then we also reached out to Kevin, who's the president CEO at Lynn University, and we engaged an MBA class through a previous relationship I had with one of the professors. So we have Lynn University in an MBA class where we kicked off that initiative in early October, and their scopes of work are fourfold. First is that they're doing a situation analysis, which is basically a snapshot of where we are, a Polaroid, if you will. The next is they're going to do a review of the existing marketing strategies that are being deployed to support tourism, but more importantly, they're going to make recommendations for how to enhance those. They're going to research the current KPIs, what's the dashboard, what's the metrics that we're using today to deliver and track tourism. And then they're also going to even take it to the next level where they want to create some creative ideas on how to maybe market the idea that we wouldn't normally have thought about. So we're delighted to have that class engaged, and their deliverable is the beginning of December. So the tourism committees, because you've got 66 different people, we've taken the tourism task force and we've put them into 4 different tourism committees. And they get to choose what committee they want to sit in. And if they don't choose, we assign them. And we probably already have over 50% of the task force. Keeping in mind, we just kicked it off on Friday that have raised their hand, and they're sitting in some regards on 2 or 3 committees, not just one. So we have marketing, we have attractions, tourism infrastructure, and then organizational structure. So as I mentioned, they were volunteered. And then we've got the DDA, the chamber, and the city co-chairing with myself, each of those different committees. And we have a task force meeting, then we have a tourism committee, we meet once a month. And amplification of each of those committees is found in the appendix. So when you get the deck, you can drill down and see what, the focus of those committees are. So tourism assets, there's a lot of them out there, but I don't know how many restaurants we have or how many attractions we have or how many special events. So we're working with the steering committee to identify all of those, and then we will publish those to the task force to quality control them. And we need your help. We would like to publish this list to the Tourism Roundtable to make sure that we've identified all the tourism assets. It's important to know where we are today. So from a product development standpoint, if we're making recommendations for the future, we know how many restaurants we have, we know how many places there are to shop. So it's, again, creating that foundation of where we are. And I think the residual benefit is that going back to the submarine versus aircraft carrier conversation, we're going to create a database of all these different organizations and who is the key point of contact. So again, from a strategic standpoint, we all can row together more efficiently and create momentum. The fact base, we're going to take a look at what the city database looks like in terms of business intelligence, their strat plan, department priorities, org charts, operating budgets. We've already got the TDC agency destination marketing plans for 2022. So we're using that as an input. Michael Corbett, through his leadership, has done a business sector analysis. So at a future meeting, we'll probably have him present the highlights of that study. And then we've got other third-party consulting reports that we're using. So the current state is documenting existing marketing strategies and tactics, and Lynn is kind of helping us with that. Determine staffing, how many people at the city focus or have anything to do with tourism in their JDs. I know DDA has a couple resources that they leverage to focus on tourism. We want to determine how much are we investing in tourism, knowing what the business case was revealing in terms of $600 million business model, and then identify the KPIs. And then, what have we done that has been a huge success, and what are the challenges? I can remember going to Delray, before the pandemic, to all the arts and crafts shows. We love those. How do we really take the best of the best and move that that meal forward? So the SWOT analysis, with Stephanie referenced earlier in the introduction, it's most of you, I'll assume, have filled out a SWOT analysis, which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We've developed a standardized template, which Stephanie has a copy of, and she'll be sending it to you after this meeting. And I've got one that I'll show you on the screen. To encourage all of you to complete it. Anyone who completes a survey, we're going to have a drawing at our next meeting in early December. And we've got two partners, Deck 84 and Deck and Glory, who have each contributed a $100 gift card. And then I'll compile the responses. They're due the 19th of November, and it will start to tell a story. And the results of that SWOT analysis will be used to start developing recommendations for the foundation of the tourism master plan. And in my experience in other destinations, there's always some residual information that comes out of here, because it gives the task force members an opportunity to vet to some degree. So some of the feedback we're going to get through this process really has nothing to do with tourism, but it will might serve as an aha moment for the city staff. So it's a simple Excel spreadsheet. We give the definition, we give instructions on how to complete it. It's, as I mentioned, the 19th. If any of you are having challenges filling it out or sending it back to me, I've given you my telephone number and my email address. Just hit me up and I'll support you any way I can. So under each category, we've tried to drill down, if you will, and have a data definition on, what exactly is a strength, what is a weakness, what is an opportunity, and what's a threat. And again, this is not a tourism strategic solutions answer. This is the task force telling us as a team what they perceive the SWOT input is. So moving on, best practices, we'll identify destinations within Palm Beach County and also the state of Florida. I've got Palm Beach State College doing another exercise for us, which is they're going out to every major city in the state of Florida and pulling down their destination marketing plans. So I'm creating a kind of a competitive intelligence database. So we'll be able to tell what Tampa is doing, what Jacksonville is doing, what Miami is doing. That will help us craft, if you will, how do we trump those other destinations, because we've got some best practices from other destinations that by themselves are singular, but when you start to combine them, you get some real power. They're also doing the same thing for websites. So they're looking at every website that's related to tourism, looking at their frameworks, and then making recommendations for what the top 3 websites for tourism are in the state of Florida. We'll document the attributes of best practices. I always think of the Visitor Information Center at A1A and Atlantic. That is not a lot of, I think when I was with Discover, we had 11 or 12 visitor information centers. So that's an attribute that if we were doing kind of a grid that says, here's 20 different attributes of success, and we can start to plot, if you will, the destination, where they are on that success grid, if you will, and where we need to, invest additional resources to make us more competitive. We'll leverage this as input to our recommendations. We've got a lot of tourism industry research that we're, again, when you see the knowledge support system, you'll see some of the content there. And then future state. And by the way, this is not me on the green board, because hopefully I have more hair than this guy. So we're going to conduct ideation sessions with the task force to kind of, say, where do we want to be 3 to 5 years from now? What's that vision? We'll leverage best practices. We'll incorporate any residents' feedback, because we've got individuals that are residents that are sitting on the task force as well, because we want them at the table, because anything we do will have a downstream potential impact on them. And then we will look at some big ideas. I'm from Chicago. In Chicago and Millennial Park, there's something called the Cloud Gate, better known as the Beam. It's a chrome piece of art that generates 4 million visitors per year. But the headline is that those 4 million images, or visitors, if you will, drive 4 billion images on Google. So where is our Cloud Gate? Where's our Eiffel Tower? Where's our Ferris wheel? What's going to cause somebody who's driving down I-95 to say, oh, I got to take a left here. I want to go down Atlantic because I heard about X, whatever X is. So again, we're going to go through that process to identify potential, big ideas. And then, we're going to recommend enhanced marketing strategies from where we are. We're doing a great job. The chamber is witnessed by this tourism committee, the DDA, with their team, and the city are all focused and realize that tourism is a main pillar on their strategic chair. So the timing is perfect, especially because of the pandemic. So best practices, you've seen the Christmas tree that, draws 100,000 visitors. You've got the tennis matches that go on. So we'll use travel industry research. As I mentioned, we've got the top 25 trends that are taking place. We've got BDPs. As we mentioned, we've got that destination marketing plan and website frameworks that I mentioned that Palm Beach State College is bringing to the party. Then we've got the tourism master plan, and that's really the final document, which will document where we are today, what's the future look like, what's the process that we use throughout the engagement, incorporates all the data that we're capturing from a number of different sources, Suggest an implementation plan, again, based upon the ranking of all the recommendations, and then it's used as a roadmap and leverage for future planning. So this is not a document that sits on a shelf. Once we deliver it, it really is part of the ongoing conversation with all of those three agencies. And then we force rank the recommendations in the priority sequence. When I did Boynton Beach, we had, I think, 54 recommendations. When I did Riviera Beach, we had 56 recommendations. I'm presenting tomorrow the first draft of recommendations for Lake Worth Beach. They've got 96 recommendations, which is kind of a all-time record. But if you think of Lake Worth Beach and where they are on the tourism continuum, you know, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's no quantifiable goal that I have in terms of recommendations, but you know, it's the further we drill down on these different opportunities. And again, what we've asked the task force to do is, as we're going through the process, they're sending me recommendations, and I'm creating this recommendations database, which I will share at every meeting. I'm not showing the person's name because I don't want any of the information to be tainted in any way. So again, we're building this recommendation database over the next 6 to 8 months. Recommendations, it's the foundation as I referenced. We'll have the database, which we'll publish every month. And then we're segmenting the recommendations into those 4 food groups that I've divided the committees into: marketing, attractions, tourism, infrastructure, staffing, finance, and BI. And then the task force is asked to be proactive throughout the process, making the recommendations. I probably already have a dozen that I've received since Friday. And then, as I mentioned, we're not publishing that, and we will share at the end of each meeting. So the communication plan, how do we, once we create the tourism master plan, how do we, you know, make it public? And it will educate the stakeholders and residents on the value of tourism. It's my understanding that there really is no process for the city to educate the current residents on the power of tourism. How many know that for every 100 visitors, it creates 1 job, or every visitor, they drop, you know, $450 to $900 in economic value. So part of this is we want to get the residents in play and act as really ambassadors for the destination, you know, asking friends and family members to come and experience what we live every day. Provides the rationale for future state, aligns the stakeholders, ongoing process focused stakeholders and residents, and then we go into implementation. And that links back to, as I mentioned, the comprehensive plan. And it goes from an architectural standpoint to actually, you know, becoming a general contractor and being action oriented. So part of the services that I bring to the party, and I'm doing this for Riviera Beach, and I did it for Boynton Beach, is once we create the blueprint for success, I actually help them build it out and continue the momentum that we created as from a architectural standpoint to make sure that the house actually gets built. Provides an execution timeline, defines roles and responsibilities, and then focuses on the 80-20 rule. What are those, you know, 20% of the recommendations that are at the top of the list that are going to drive 80% of the value by having a tourism master plan? Then last is the dashboard. You know, how do we measure what we're doing? Visit Florida, as an example, has over 100 KPIs that they look at on a periodic basis. I don't think we need 100, but we want to find out what do we have today and what do we need. So tracks visitation to ensure that we're getting our fair share plus. I don't want 8% or 8.7% of visitation. I want 16%. I want to double the number of visitors that are coming to the destination. And by creating this tourism master plan, it will create that roadmap for the future. Provides the data that we turn into business intelligence so we can make smarter decisions downline. Recommended KPIs will be prioritized. It will also validate, as the city is parsing out their annual budget, how we get sourced. and then creates a foundation for future decision-making from a city perspective. So the project timeline, we're here. As I mentioned, we're running kind of parallel paths. We created the task force. We're in the process of documenting the tourism assets. We just had our tourism kickoff meeting, which was on the 5th. And our next one is, we have something going on every single month. We estimate that the engagement will have the final product sometime in the April to May timeframe, but if it takes longer, it is what it is. And we will ensure that we deliver something that the city and the DDA and the chamber can optimize. So the knowledge support system, which we really created for Lynn University and their students, consists of the comprehensive plan. Delray Beach has been real proactive in providing us with a lot of research, and thanks to Discover the Palm Beaches, they did some analysis of people coming into the destination using cell phone technology. So that was part of what we delivered to them. Delray Beach provided their strat plan. Palm Beach County Tourist Development Council provided us with the 2022 marketing plans for each of the 4 agencies. We've got a link to Visit Florida and their research database. And then we've got MMGY Next Factor Destination Next, their future study. So all this information, there's links in the appendix should you want to drill down even further. In terms of next steps, what I will do is I've already sent the deck to Stephanie for her to distribute. She's got the SWOT analysis template, which she'll send you. I'll compile the information that you provide me. And again, all of this is candid. This is confidential. I'm the only one that sees this. So we're not broadcasting, well, so-and-so said X. That's not the way we play. This is going to be a summary of all of the different feedback. And then I'm in the process of crafting that recommendations database. And tomorrow, if you wake up and say, well, I wish I would have asked Don X, just send me an email and hopefully I'll be able to respond to you. So from your perspective, from a chamber perspective, forward copy of, or really this is Stephanie, forward copy of the deck on SWOT analysis. For you all, it's really help quality control the tourism asset database that we're going to be sending out, complete the SWOT analysis by the 19th. And then, as some of you are involved in the task force, and even if you're not, if you have an idea that says, as crazy as it might seem, why don't you keep the Visitor Information Center open 24/7? Now, I'm not supporting that, but if that's a recommendation that you have and you've got passion behind it, please send it to us because it will be on the list that everyone will prioritize. So I want to thank you for your time. I'm not too sure if I've got 121 here, so it's taking a little longer than I thought, but I want to thank you for your patience and your time. And now I'm going to turn it back to Steph, and we can review any questions that you might have on anything I did cover or anything that I didn't cover.
No, that was very extensive. That, believe it or not, is a shorter version of the presentation. I've seen it several times, but I still learn something every time I see it. So thank you for that, Dawn. We know that we're in good hands with you taking over this process for us. So the most important thing is I'll be sending to everybody that's that signed up on the list. I've got their email addresses in Chamber Master, and I'll send everyone the presentation that you just did, as well as the SWOT analysis. And then don't send the SWOT analysis back to me. Send it directly back to Dawn. So Dawn, do you want to tell them your email address again? It'll be on the email too.
It's on the form.
Okay, it's on the form, and I will BCC all of you and copy him. So you just need to reply to Don and give him your candid analysis of our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. That's the best thing that you guys can do to help us with respect to the tourism master plan. So anybody have any questions then for Don? Anything in the chat? No? Okay. This always happens via Zoom. Nobody wants to speak and raise their hand. Come on, guys. Anything that you want to ask them or comments? Easy crowd.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, that's great. So I'll be recapping this with you, and we'll be scheduling another tourism roundtable in the near future. We'll like to do it every 2 to 3 months, and we'll keep you updated on the process. Oh, I'm getting questions on my emails from people, but I'll answer that directly. So we'll keep you updated on the process. If you haven't joined the tourism task force, there's probably still room. Everybody's welcome. It's not any type of closed process. So if you're interested in what we're working on, again, you can get back to Don and I'll provide his email address to you and we can add you to the task force. We'll be meeting monthly until what, April or May, you said, right? And we've got a lot of great input from people already.
Correct.
Okay. So anything else anyone want to chime in? Sarah, I don't know if you want to say anything. Sarah Maxfield's our Economic Development Director for the city. And she's always supporting us in these activities. In fact, she's the one who wrote the check. There she is.
Nothing super, nothing special, just we really appreciate everybody's participation and input, and this is how we make it work. If we can just get 20 minutes of your time to fill that out with, like Stephanie said, just a really honest and candid view, that we've got to have that input in order to have a purposeful output. So we appreciate your time.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. All right, and if that's it, then we'll go ahead and let everybody go. Thank you so much for your time today. It's super informative, Dawn. Thank you again, and we'll keep everybody posted. You'll be getting email from me soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye.